Hey everyone, Rogue Guild here, and today I want to begin the series of videos I mentioned in my previous channel update video that is a deep dive on the potentials for Division 3. Basically, if you didn't see that video, I just kind of went over that the core of this channel has always been grounded in discussions. Those are my favorite things to have, just about, anything about the game, how it can improve, what systems I like and don't like, etc., etc. And more specifically, recently, I've been focusing on the Division 3 because I think this is the prime time for us to give our, core feedback on what that game should be built to kind of revolve around. And so I really want to start a series on this channel about different systems and things that are probably going to be in Division 3 based off of what was in the first two games and my thoughts on that, and just a platform for you guys to leave your own opinions on those different topics in the comments below. So this will be the first video in a new playlist on the channel. You can check it out. And yeah, I'm very excited to get into it. Before we fully dive into that though, I will preface for anyone who hasn't seen my previous video on Division 3 that yes, I'm practically fully convinced at this point that the game is currently in development and likely and hopefully coming for a March 2022 release. The most recent hints towards this are that Massive has several job opportunities listed for a, quote, unannounced action RPG shooter title, and there's a bunch more evidence, so you can go check my channel playlist for my Div 3 speculation videos I've done in the past if you want to hear more about that. I just mentioned that to hopefully dissuade half the comments being, why are you talking about an unannounced game? It's not worth your time, blah, blah, blah. And those will probably still be there, but oh well, I can give it a shot and hopefully dissuade some of those from coming on. And so, with all that said, I want to kick off all of that today with a pretty broad topic, but an important one nonetheless, and that is, how can Ubisoft and Massive structure this game to really fully compete with Destiny? Obviously, I would say Destiny is their biggest competitor in the looter-shooter genre, kind of that MMO-light thing for consoles. And I can't really say that either of the Division entries in the franchise have ever fully and directly competed with Destiny. They've certainly done well enough in their own regard with things like the raids in Div 2 and PvP in the Dark Zone in Division 1, but there's never been a point where you can say, are you going to play Division or Destiny? Because Destiny just brings you that holistic and just complete experience on all cylinders the Division has never been able to provide. So, I think that in order for them to compete, that falls under 6 different categories that they need to achieve, starting with commitment. We need a long-term dev team, and we need no reassignments. This wasn't as much of an issue in Division 1 because we didn't really know the developers as well yet, but it's been very clear in Division 2 that behind the scenes, people are slotted in and out of this game on, I want to say a weekly basis. We used to have Redstorm. We used to have notable faces like Thylander and Drew and all those types of people that were on the game, working on the game. We would see them on State of the Game, and now they're just not there anymore. Obviously, Redstorm has publicly announced that they were moved to another project. Whether that is Division 3 or some other title, I don't know, but they're not working on Division 2 anymore. We don't know what happened to Drew. He doesn't have any social medias, and he's never been on State of the Game to say anything, so we don't know where he went. We know Thylander is working on a different project. It's just like you see all these different people come in, and we grow to know them and, trust them for sources on the game, and then they get pulled. They get moved to something else, and we don't know what happens. And I think that really just doesn't create that sort of link between players and company that allows that great growth to happen. Most notably, I'll say with Destiny, that ever since they split with Activision, I'm sure it's been a lot easier for them to kind of bring that commitment as far as the development team goes. But I remember playing Destiny 1 year one. Luke Smith is kind of I think he's the creative director at Bungie. He's just kind of the overall guy on Destiny. I remember in Destiny 1 year one, he was on some sort of video. This is a meme back then that he, was quoted for saying, oh, you're going to be throwing your money at the screen when you see this stuff. Just kind of like off the cuff comments that wasn't taken the best way. Now you look at him, the dude's like, in charge of everything. He knows what's going on with the game. He's providing the players with these, roadmaps and senses of where we're going to take the direction of the game. He's really stepped up. He's weathered the storm of those, what has it been, 6 years since Destiny 1 came out. And you can see he's seasoned and he's ready to take the franchise in a direction that's going to be beneficial in the long term. So I think we really need a Division 3 where we get clear indicators of who's working on what when the game launches, and we hopefully can see them stick around and really continue to develop the game if there's any parts that's lacking. I'm not saying that necessarily the whole game is going to be bad or it needs, improvements from the start, but if it does, we need to know these people and trust them so we can communicate our thoughts with them and feel like it's being received, adamantly. So that's the first thing I think is commitment. The second category that I think they really need to bring up to the table is having a clear post-launch strategy. Both Division 1 and Division 2 have tackled post-launch very differently. Division 1 had its more, I want to say minor, but medium-sized expansions. We had it obviously in Year 1, Underground, Survival, and Last Stand. Those brought each a game mode with them, along with, I think they all brought an incursion. Not Survival didn't, but most of them bring an incursion. You got new weapons and new gear, all that kind of stuff. And then later on in Year 2, we had 1.8, which is arguably just as big as 1.6 or bigger, and that brought an open world expansion. It brought new PvP mode and all that kind of stuff. So Division 1 was more focused on those medium-sized expansions, every few months. Division 2 has opted more for the Destiny model, where you have yearly big expansions. Obviously, the one we've seen so far is Warlords of New York. It's to be determined if we're going to get another one this March or not. And then in between, some smaller stuff. I will say that Year 2 for Division 2, in my opinion, has done a much better job with content than Year 1 did. The problem with Year 1 was that at launch, when they kind of communicated what their plans were going to be, they said, we're going to have these 3 episodes throughout Year 1. They're all going to be free. It's going to be great. They cited, different things like map expansions. Didn't happen. New gear, new weapons, new content, all that kind of stuff. So we had this picture in our head that it was going to be similar to the expansions we had during Division 1, and it just wasn't that. They weren't nearly as large as those. It didn't bring nearly as much replayable or engaging content as we could have hoped, and most of them boiled down to 2 new story missions, and that just did not cut it. They didn't tell us that there was going to be a major expansion when the game launched, so we were up in the dark until February of 2020, a whole 11 months after the game launched, before we realized, the reason there's been no content is because they're working on this big $30 expansion. And even now, we don't know if that's going to happen again this March, or if they're going to announce Division 3, or both. We just don't know. So we need to have a clear post-launch plan communicated to us so that we can expect what is going to come, we can look forward to things, we can have roadmaps, etc., etc. That leads me to the third point on this list, is broader communication. Ubisoft really needs to remove the blanket PR restrictions that they put on Massive and this dev team, because I think that the kind of communication strategy that they have for their various titles like Assassin's Creed or Watch Dogs or whatever, it doesn't work on a game like The Division. It doesn't work on a live service looter shooter genre title. This is such a complex and intricate game that the devs really need to be able to talk to the community about what they want when they want. We need to be able to have a clear line of communication about any point in the game and not have the devs say, we can't talk about that right now, it'll be coming up soon maybe, we don't have anything to say right now. Because if you didn't know, every time they say that, it's Ubisoft and the corporates and the higher-ups limiting them on what they can talk about. Why? I really couldn't tell you, but that's what it is. It's not like the devs are just shying away from different topics. They do stay the games in the heat of when, there's controversy going on in the community. They're not afraid to go and face the fire if there's something bad going on, but it's that, it's that restriction that Ubisoft puts on them that really hinders how far the community can put trust and faith in these developers and the corporation overall. So communication is a big one that they really need to step up on, and I really hope that Ubisoft can allow them to just have freedom of communication with the community, because that's really what you need for a game like this. Next up, fourth thing on my list, we have proper development resources. I don't necessarily think that Division 2, at least at launch, I don't know about now, was understaffed, because I think it was reported that there were over 1,000 developers at one point or something from all the different studios. So I don't think it's necessarily that Division 2 is understaffed from the start, but in a game that's live service and the players are going to want more and more and more content for the years after launch, you need to continue supplying whatever studio is working on the game with proper resources. And I don't think that right now Massive has the kind of development resources that they need in order to fulfill the community's wishes. Sure, they're maybe working on another expansion and they're providing us with these title updates throughout the year and seasons and whatnot, but I think we all know that it could be more. If they had more resources, they could make more game modes. They could probably work on PvP. They could do some other stuff that everyone's been asking for, but they just don't have the amount of resources to, allocate to do those things. So this ties back to the commitment aspect I was talking about. You really need to have a dev team that's there from day one, and you can fund and supply to remain there, years after launch, so that these people can continue working on the game, they can get to know what the players want, and they can deliver on those aspects and not just be like, well, sorry, we don't have the people to work on it. Because that's really shameful for a live service, looter shooter game because basically that's what they said for PvP, is that they don't have the resources, they don't have the people in order to invest time into their I don't necessarily blame them because it's a shit show anyway, but that's kind of what's going on. And so if Ubisoft can really just provide them with the developers and the resources they need to continue the game going, they can really stand a fair chance with competing in the genre of the looter shooter. All right, now these last two things on my list are going to be more gameplay focused and game specific, and those are starting with a unique attraction. Division really needs an intense and exciting draw over its competitors to draw people in, that give them a reason to want to play Division over other games. Division 2 didn't really do that in any regard, I didn't think. I mean, we had raids, but those aren't new to the genre. Destiny has done raids. World of Warcraft has done raids. Other games have done raids. We had like invasions, but that's not really such a unique gameplay feature that's going to make people be like, who have never heard of Division, be like, oh, I want to play Division so I can try invasions. No one's thinking that. Specializations didn't do that. There was nothing so eye-catching for Division 2 that made people want to play it. For Division 1, we had the Dark Zone. That was a brand new, not necessarily brand new, but a new enough concept to, especially the console, landscape and the genre overall, that made people want to try out Division. I've heard plenty of people who say they tried Division because of the Dark Zone, but Division 2 really didn't evolve that enough to make it a new attraction again. It just didn't really deliver on that aspect. So I think if Division 3 wants to compete against Destiny, against these other titles, there needs to be a new and exciting attraction. And I think that could come in the form of Survival 2.0. I've pitched this in other videos before, I know, but if they can make survival kind of what Warzone is to Call of Duty right now, I think Division could be insanely successful. It could top Twitch charts for a long time after launch. Here's what I'm thinking. Make survival a free-to-play side piece to Division 2. You can download it for a free client on your Xbox, on your PlayStation, wherever, and it functions a lot like Warzone does to Modern Warfare and Call of Duty right now, where you can play it entirely free and it's separated from the main game. You have your own menu, you see your character, maybe you can even buy cosmetics that, that way they can make some revenue off of you if you don't want to buy the main game. And then when you load into your survival match, just like survival in Division 1, it has no, ties, no connection to the main game. You start off with a pistol and maybe any cosmetics that you've bought, and then you go from there and you do the game mode. And with the next-gen capabilities, if Division 3 is a next-gen exclusive title, which I deeply hope it is, then you could even expand upon the survival idea, bring in more player counts, 48, 100, however many you want, use the entire open world map that it's going to feature, and just make the experience a very compelling one to play. I think had more people been exposed to survival in Division 1, in the broader video game industry, it could have even had a greater impact than it did. And so if they were to market this correctly and make it a really compelling BR experience that people want to play and has its own, unique Division and survival take on it, where it's not necessarily you're just looting and you're fighting, there's crafting, there's finding the virus. However they want to fit it in and evolve it from its original form, it could be insanely successful. And I think it could bring a lot more people to the Division brand, because then if it's a free-to-play component, they play this, maybe then the draw is, well, if you own the main game and you're level 30 or however they want to do it, then you're also earning rewards that apply to the main game. After every match, you get caches, you get whatever. And if you own the main game, then those are applying to that, whereas if you get the free-to-play version, there's probably no incentive other than maybe in-game currency for cosmetics. So to reiterate, I just think if they were to kind of do with survival what they've done with Warzone and Call of Duty, it could be an insane successful factor for the Division and could bring a ton of people to a potential Division 3. And last, but certainly not least, we have PvP. Now, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone at this point that I think PvP has just been handled terribly in Div 2. Not only is the gameplay and mechanics of it terrible, in my opinion, compared to Division 1, but the support on it post-launch has been abysmal. We've had 2 maps and 1 new game mode for Conflict, and the Dark Zones got reworked once in TU8. So pretty bad. And here's the deal. Here's where I think a lot of people get a little misguided here. When I say that I think PvP needs much better support in Division 3, I think a lot of people often take that as, oh, he wants them to then stop support on PvE and just make it a PvP game. That's not what I want. I don't play this game. All right, let me clarify. My favorite part of Division, at least Division 1, is the PvP. Does that mean that I then hate the PvE? No. I play the game. I got into the game because it's a looter shooter. I enjoy there being PvE and PvP elements. Just because PvP is my favorite doesn't mean I want them to totally take away or diminish the PvE experience. Again, this ties back to, resource management, and if Ubisoft allows them to have it, I want both sides of the game to be supported equally. I think that they both bring different values and different types of players to the game that makes the ecosystem so great, but PvP has always gotten shortchanged. And people say that it's an afterthought of the game, it's, not part of the core experience. Well, guess what? The Dark Zone was one of their most core experiences and, forethoughts when they were making Division 1. So you can't necessarily say that it's been an afterthought when it was baked into the experience from probably close to day one. In an ideal Division 3, what I would love to see on the PvE side is stuff like, missions and all that kind of stuff, and then we get incursions and raids. I think that would be the ultimate endgame experience. Then on the PvP side of things, we have the Dark Zone that's hopefully a lot better than in Div 2. We have good game modes, PvP game modes that are, fun and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of this boils down to if the core PvP mechanics are good. But we have those. Maybe we get some sort of Trials of Osiris system from Destiny. I've always thought, at least in Division 1, that would be awesome to have, and it would generate a lot of excitement and all that stuff over PvP, so if we could get something like that, that would be awesome. And just support both things from day one. Have each update bring a new PvP map along with a new incursion, a new game mode along with, new missions. Just balance both things out, so that you don't have this situation where you got one side of the community always asking for more content and the devs never being able to deliver. As much as you might hate me for saying this, PvP is pretty much the most replayable of content you can create for a game. Every engagement is going to be in a different location with different people using different builds and guns and all that kind of stuff. There's endless variety and replayability in that, even if, at some point you're going to exhaust most of it, it's still the most replayable thing you can create. At least from what we've seen so far. Sure, they could, do some crazy game mode where it just generates your environment all around you. I don't think that's really going to happen. So PvP at the core of it is the most replayable you can get. And there's a large audience that wants Division PvP to be good, mainly from Division 1, that have left the game now and are waiting to see if Ubisoft can step up to the plate and deliver a good PvP experience for Division 3. And so I think if they can hit on that note and continue to support it past launch and, make it good from the start, then I think Division 3 is set up to be very well loved from the PvP side of things, and that just only benefits the entire community as a whole. So PvP, in my opinion, is a quintessential aspect that they need to get right in order for Division 3 to be successful and for it to compete with Destiny and other competitors. Alright guys, well I think that wraps up my thoughts on how a potential Division 3 can compete with Destiny and other titles in the looter shooter genre. A lot of this stuff isn't even specifically related to the game, the stuff I put forward, and that's because I think that the start of good success comes from what's going on behind the scenes. You can make a good game, but if the values and practices behind that aren't, holding up to the standard, then the whole thing is going to break apart at some point. And I think that's kind of what we've seen happen over the course of Division 1 and Division 2, regardless of what's been going on in the game. And so, starting there, I think is a good point to then, build upon that and make the game great. I'm going to deep dive on different in-game and gameplay systems that I think Division 3 needs to hit on in future videos, but for this one, I really just wanted to crack down on the stuff that people don't always think about, the behind-the-scenes stuff that can really lead to a game's success, because I think Destiny overall has done a pretty good job with that, as far as their marketing and their PR and all that kind of stuff, and if Division, massive Ubisoft, whatever you want to label it, can step up to the plate and hit that mark too, then I think Division 3 has a great chance to be something really special and something that a lot of people are going to gravitate towards. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Head down in the comments and let me know your own thoughts on my list for what can make Division 3 competitive in the market. If you have any more things that you would add to this list that I may have left out or forgotten, and yeah, just any general thoughts you might have on Division 3. Like I said, this is the start to what I want to make a new series that I, come back to regularly on the channel about Division 3. That in no way means I'm cutting off, Division 2 videos. I'm still going to do those probably more often than these, but like I said, this will be the first video in a new Division 3 focused playlist, so be sure to go check that out and check back on it when I add more things to it. It should be a pretty good time. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day, and until the next one, guys, Rogue Gold out.